Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Eric Dunavant on the line. He's CEO over at Paradigm. Eric, welcome to the show.
Adam, it is great to be here. Excited to be on the show.
All right, so I'm excited to get into today's topic because as I was telling you in the pre-show, I said, wait a minute, I haven't heard of this topic. Number one, I've done over 3,000 episodes in investing for return on intention, also known as ROI. I've heard of return on investment, but I'm excited to get into your concept of return on intention. But before we do, I do want to talk a little bit more for context about what you're doing over at Paradigm. So tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Yeah, no, so Paradigm has been set up, and what we say that we do is we help families and businesses live a better story. And so let me put that into a little bit of context just real quick. Is if you're having a conversation with someone and you just ask them, hey, how are you doing? What most people will respond is, I'm good. Things are good. Life is good. But really we start digging into it. What we start to find out is everybody's got things going on. And what I began to find from looking at life and partnering with families is that when you focus on return on investment, and that's your only focus, it's the only thing that you really concentrate on, what you end up creating most often are unintended consequences that fall out of the back end of that leave you with a very poor return on intention. And so what we believe at Paradigm is if you flip the script, what if we started by talking about return on intention and that became our focus? Then in focusing on return on intention and the actual outcomes that you want to have happen actually get you a better return on investment. That is the idea.
So, there's some people listening that are definitely looking for other resources to learn more and to, possibly looking for advisors and wealth managers. What's typically a good fit? Because I want to make sure that the right people do follow up with Paradigm. What's typically a good client fit?
Yeah, so our target client is a business owner who's running a business that is probably about 5 to 7 years away from an exit. So they know that the exit is coming up, but they're not quite ready to exit it yet. So they're doing all the things that they need to do to get ready. And the main reason that I say that is our target client is because that person has been focused on return on investment inside of their business. And they're growing it and getting it ready, and they're going to transition over that next 5 to 7 years into a different lifestyle and into a different approach. And so many times there has been unintended return on intention that's been happening as they've been running their business, and maybe they've not paid as much attention to their family as they should have or connected in ways. And what we want to do is help them get ready, because when you sell a business, you go from one day of having a business worth something on paper to the next day of actually having money in the bank account. And that total transition, if a person is not ready for that transition and hasn't thought about it, we find it catches a ton of business owners by surprise if they're not prepared.
Oh, man, I couldn't agree with you more. And I've had people, when I was back in my advisor days, I remember somebody bringing a check, and it was a really large check. And I'm saying, all right, Adam, I'm finally ready to talk to you. And I'm like, what is this? And they're like, well, I sold the business. I'm like, we were supposed to plan before you sold the business. I've been following up with you for 2 years. You told me there's so much we could have done around tax planning, and now you're telling me you want me to help you save taxes and to better, and you already have the money in the bank. it's done, or you have it in your pocket in the check, it's done. All the tax planning and the things that we could have done in terms of structuring the deal to make it the most beneficial, done. So if you're a business owner listening to this right now, that is, let's call this the unintentional return on procrastination. That person wanted to talk to me. He was going to do business with me, and I told him I was trying to set that up for almost 2 years, and he always had the intention of doing business with me, but he was just busy, and he was doing other things, and this and that, and no matter what, and and so what happened, he sells the whole business, and that broke my heart, because that person paid more in taxes. He did a lot of things. He was a really good person. And when you think about when you work all that time, none of that money was free. You paid all your tax, you did all this stuff to accumulate those assets, right. And then to let it all to be like going into home plate, like sliding in and then to miss and to be tagged out like that is just like, oh, come on, man. I that hurt my heart. So I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, and I had to share that story because I want people to definitely follow up. But I do want to get into this topic. So investing for return on intention, you kind of touched base on what it meant, but what has this meant in your practice? Like, give us an idea of like what that looks like and how that can play out. And by the way, obviously everybody listening should know everybody's situation is going to be different, and you should consult your advisor about your specific situation. But I do know that the more like people you work with, the more themes that you see arise. So what are some of those themes or outcomes that have arisen that you've noticed from this process of focusing on ROI?
Well, so most of the time what people think, especially if you're going to go into a business sale or something like that, they think it's about the strategy or the tactic or the tool. And what we really have found is that those are good. I mean, those need to come into place. But if you do that without being really clear on what your vision is, what your values for your family are, and where you want to end up 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, you've got to be very intentional about making sure you think that out and you don't end up doing some things through a strategy that put you in a place you don't want to be. So what we like to say is it really centers around the relationship, because what I've found is I don't think money causes problems. What money does is it reveals and magnifies the things that we've been ignoring. So we really emphasize the family, and we think it takes place in 4 areas: making sure that the family focuses on their values, focuses on their vision, focuses on voice, which has to do with communication among family members, and then focuses on a venture, which is something that the family can be about that's greater than them. And we can unpack any of those, but it's really about getting the family focused on those 4 things will then help you get clarity around the right strategies, tactics, and tools and get better return on investment.
Let's talk a little bit more about the family side of things and what that looks like. So let's go. Obviously, in a 15-minute episode, there's only so much we can unpack.
Absolutely.
And by the way, for everybody listening, even if we had all the time in the world to talk about this, I want you to call Eric, so I still wouldn't do it. So at the end, we're going to leave some contact info for you to follow up with Eric. But let's unpack the family side of things a little, please.
Yeah. So values is about how do we create mutual understanding and consensus for the value and purpose of the family? And it's really about the family coming together. So mom and dad have certain values, but the kids have values. And how do you find a mutual place that's agreeable? And as the kids get married and as you have grandkids, how do you find things that unify everyone together? You know, a business has values. You'd never run a business without a value statement, a mission statement, all that. We run our families all the time without that. So how do we create those values? And then the second piece of this is vision. And this is going to look a little bit differently than I think most people think. But when we talk about vision, what we want to do is we want to be speaking the potential that we see inside of our family. So part of capturing our story, but also, you know, so many times what I find is true is people think really good things about other people, but they don't ever say it. And everyone runs around with a little bit of self-doubt. So we're encouraging families to write letters to each other, to put down on paper just the greatness and what they see in their children and how they see them developing and being a part of the family. The third piece of that is voice. And what we say there is we want to give everyone in the family a voice, even if they don't necessarily get a vote. I think so many times, you know, especially kids just want to be heard. And they want to know that their opinion matters. And, you know, especially if you've got a business owner who's selling a business, you want to make decisions on what's best for you and you and your spouse or your partner on what you want to do with those funds. But you want to hear from your kids and have open communication on what they think about happening. And again, they get a voice. They don't necessarily get a vote because it's your money to manage and your decisions to make. But when they feel heard, they have more buy-in. And then lastly is that venture, is what is something that we can do together? And maybe that's volunteering, maybe that's going on a mission trip, maybe that's through some generosity. And we've found that when families can pull these four pieces together really strategically, there's so much clarity that starts to come around their intentions. Again, now they can create really good return on investment through the right strategies, tactics, and tools.
Man, that's awesome. So Eric, if somebody is listening to this and they want to learn more about Paradigm or to connect with you and your team, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so the best way is to visit our website. It's paradigm.org, Paradim.org. And then the second thing that I would say is if you're like, man, I want to know more about this specifically, we offer a free family impact kit, which is around these ideas of values, visions, voice, and venture. And all you have to do is send me an email at eric@paradigm.org and put family impact kit in the title, and we'll send you a link to download all of that, and you can start to see what that's about and how that can really help you get better return on intention.
That's awesome. And let's leave that email one more time, because I feel like there were some people that were grabbing pens and like, what did that guy say? Like, wait a minute, let me grab it. What was the email again?
Yeah, eric@paradigm, Paradim.org, and put Family Impact Kit in your title. That's all you've got to do. We'll know what to do from there.
Fantastic. Well, Eric, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your concept of ROI. Like I said, haven't heard it before, but it makes complete sense to me. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you're a first-time listener, sure would like to have you hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you back as a return listener. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button over there, but also leave us some comments on that video. We'd love to hear from you and keep the conversation going over in our YouTube community. That channel is Mission Matters Money. Real easy to find if you want to subscribe. And Eric, thanks again for coming to the show. It's been a pleasure.
Adam, thank you. It's been great.